And the Golden Globe goes to Sofia Coppola.
I always tell people to stick with what they see, what they imagine, and not worry if nobody gets it. To stick to your guns. If you believe in it, someone else will connect with it.
This is Sofia C. Coppola. She wrote and directed Lost in Translation, which is my favorite movie.
Getting my flame retardant suit on because I'm about to get into Terminator 3. I am going to crush cars.
She won a Razzie before she won an Oscar. 2 Razzies, actually. Ouch. At just 19 years old, poor Sofia Coppola was named both Worst Supporting Actress and Worst New Star for her performance in The Godfather Part 3, a role she never even auditioned for, never wanted, and got only because Winona Ryder collapsed from exhaustion and Sofia's father was out of options. He just needed a quick fix. The Washington Post called her hopelessly amateurish. Time magazine wrote that her Gosling gracelessness nearly wrecked the film. Her very own daughter, decades later, told her that her death scene had been ranked online as the worst in movie history. And yet, this same woman went on to become the only American woman to win Best Director at Cannes, the first American woman to win the Golden Lion at Venice, and at the 76th Academy Awards, walked on stage to collect an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, making the Coppolas the second 3-generation Oscar-winning family in Hollywood history. The original Napo baby became, against all odds and in the face of truly brutal ridicule, the architect of cool girl cinema as we know it. If you only have 30 seconds, here's the bottom line of this video. Sofia Coppola's secret was never talent alone, and it was never connections alone either. It was taste, ruthless, quiet, unwavering taste applied to absolutely everything, from the color of a macaron to the silence between 2 people in a Tokyo hotel bar. She figured out that femininity, presented without apology and without loudness, is its own form of power, and she built an entire world from that knowledge. But if you'd like a bit more of an explanation, follow me. Welcome. I'm Kira, and this is your beauty blueprint. I spent a full week researching, watching, and editing all things Coppola to bring you her very essence and share the best of what I found. And let me tell you, what I found was a woman who has no contenders, who made silence sexier than any old spectacle, and who proved you do not need to be loud to be life-changing. So what are the actual ingredients of the Sofia Coppola persona? What makes her films feel like slipping into a warm bath of melancholy and beauty? Why does every Gen Z girl on TikTok suddenly want to live inside a still from the Virgin Suicides? I say Virgin Suicides, but it relates to any and all of her films, really. And how did a woman who openly admits she was a dilettante for most of her 20s become the singular reference point for an entire internet aesthetic, now literally called Coppolacore? We are going to unpack all of it. Promise. And before I forget, I designed a Sofia Coppola t-shirt just for the launch of this video. I mean, of course I did. Meanwhile, we have gathered quite a range there, so please do check that out. They are super soft, shipped to and fro all over our little globe. And I thank everyone who ever got one, and especially whoever reported back on it. It is not only a great way of supporting this channel, but also means the world to me, to be able to be a part of your beauty journey. And of course, do stick around, because by the end of this video, I'll serve us a quick, practical breakdown of what we can steal, very, very practically speaking, from Sofia Coppola's beauty and style universe for ourselves. Now, settle in. Pour yourself a pretty cup of tea, or if you really want to do this the Coppola way, open a bottle of her family's Sofia Sparkling Rosé, because yes, her father promised her when she was a child that he'd make her champagne someday, and indeed he did. Grab a Latteray macaron in the pastelest pink you can find. And let's start with who Sofia Coppola actually is, and how she came to be the woman whose name is now shorthand for a certain kind of aesthetic. Here's a little backstory. Sofia Carmina Coppola was born on May 14th, 1971, in New York City, to Francis Ford Coppola and Eleanor Neal Coppola, a documentary filmmaker and writer in her own right. By the way, Sofia is a Taurus with Moon in Capricorn, and Leo rising, allegedly. She grew up mostly on the family vineyard in Napa Valley, far from Hollywood, but never far from filmmaking.
Hey, mister, you 15 cents?
Nah, I don't have any money, man.
You sure?
Could you... We're busy here. Could you go away?
You have a dime?
Go away! Get out of here!
At 7 or 8, she was in the Philippines during the nightmarish Apocalypse Now shoot, drawing pictures of helicopters and palm trees, while her father had his big nervous breakdowns in the jungle. Her mother once recalled that even as a small girl, Sofia was always organizing the other children, choosing their costumes, assigning their roles. Francis has told a story about Sofia, around age 3, sitting in the back seat while her parents argued and yelling, "Cut." He says he always knew she'd be a director herself. The family was enormous and steeped in film. Her aunt is Talia Shire. Her cousin is Nicolas Cage. Her other cousin is Jason Schwartzman.
Is this like a movie or something? What are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing a TV show.
Can I do something? Can I be in it, man? Like, I want to be on TV.
Pretty crazy.
Luckily, I got exposed to some great world films because my dad was just watching them and interested in them.
So he was just watching them?
Yeah, he was just watching them. He wasn't really showing us, but we were just around. No, but that one he kind of made us all
10-year-old
watch.
Sofia, come in here. I need you to see this Renee film.
No, I feel like he wanted us all to watch it because it's a great film. And then I was a kid and I just remember falling asleep. But I do have lots of memories of, he's such a Kurosawa fan. And so I remember he had like a screen on our porch and was watching Yojimbo. Our dog was named Yojimbo growing up because of the movie. And he was watching them. I remember in the 80s during like Rumblefish time, being a kid. So I feel like luckily I got exposed to some films that I would not have seen otherwise, just because he was watching it and we were around.
And you have kids now.
Yes.
So
and I feel guilty that they are not being exposed.
So you're not taking them on the cinema tour.
I mean, I try to elevate it a little bit to from their choices, and they complain if something's black and white, but then they get with it. But I was feeling guilty because we just had that around us, and we grew up without TV reception.
Oh,
and
really?
I grew up in Napa Valley,
Right.
and there was a mountain behind our house in the country, and there was no TV. So what I was watching was my dad's Laserdisc collection and random movies that we saw over and over again.
In 1986, when Sofia was 15, her older brother, Giancarlo, died in a speedboat accident. It was a devastation from which the family never fully recovered, and Sofia has spoken about it with gravity. You never really get over something like that. That same year, at 15, she interned at Chanel in Paris under Karl Lagerfeld. That little lanky teenager, still grieving her lost brother, was right there, watching one of the greatest designers at work. Both of those simultaneous experiences, loss and beauty, would find their way into every film she ever made. Then came The Godfather Part 3, and the bottom fell out. Winona Ryder, originally cast as Mary Corleone, couldn't get out of bed in Rome. Her then-boyfriend Johnny Depp reportedly called the production to say she was too unwell to work. Francis Ford Coppola scrambled. He considered Madonna, Julia Roberts, Annabella Sciorra. Sofia, visiting on college break, had been reading lines during rehearsals. Before she knew what was happening, she was in a makeup chair at Cinecittà Studios, having her hair dyed. The reviews were pretty savage. The Razzies were humiliating. But here is the line she's repeated for 30 years, and it rings true every time. It didn't destroy me. She had other interests. Acting was never the dream. What followed was a decade of wandering that, in retrospect, looks a lot like the research phase of a genius. She co-launched MilkFed, a small fashion line with baby tees printed with slogans like "Wasted" and "I love booze," sold at Fred Segal, and in boutiques she opened in Tokyo. She shot photographs for French Vogue and Interview. She co-hosted a short-lived Comedy Central show called High Octane, driving around LA in a vintage muscle car.
So we gotta think of something really funny to do. Comedy Central says our show's not funny enough.
I think it's funny that they gave us a show.
That is funny.
She studied painting at CalArts, where a teacher told her something that changed her life. The way you look at girls is your own way of seeing. Honestly, that sends shivers down my spine. He was the first person to suggest she try filmmaking, and then somebody handed her a copy of Jeffrey Eugenides' novel, The Virgin Suicides. Sofia read it and saw, with sudden clarity, exactly how it should be made. She was 27.
I love that book, and I heard they were going to make a movie of it, and I hope that they didn't mess it up, as that happens sometimes with books that you love. And I just had an idea of how I thought they should make it into a movie, so I thought I would try to learn how to write a screenplay, and I started working on one just as a kind of practice. I thought I would just do a few chapters, but then I got really into it and kept writing, and I felt so attached to it and really had an idea of how I thought it should be as a film. I think I just loved it so much that I just didn't think too much about it. I just had to figure out how to make it, and so we made it for very low budget.
Kirsten Dunst was 16, and the two of them, along with Air, the French duo who scored the film, created something that entered the visual vocabulary of an entire generation. It premiered at Cannes in 1999 to rapturous reviews. The same festival that would later boo her would first fall in love with her. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this deep dive and you want more of this kind of research, please hit a like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps me keep going. And if you'd like access to our members-only podcast episodes, consider becoming a channel member, or better yet, Patreon. To those special few of you who are already supporters, you are the reason these videos exist, and I am so very grateful to you. After The Virgin Suicides came Lost in Translation, the film that made her talent kind of unmissable. Bill Murray and a 20-year-old Scarlett Johansson, alone in a Tokyo hotel, navigating a loneliness so specific it felt universal. That's how true art works. Sofia wrote, directed, and produced it. She won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay and became the third woman ever nominated for Best Director. The film made roughly $44 million on a budget of $4. And it was around this time that her marriage to director Spike Jonze was ending. They had married in 1999 at the family vineyard in Napa. They separated in 2003. It is widely believed that the character of Charlotte's absent, emotionally disconnected husband in Lost in Translation was drawn mostly from Spike Jonze. Sofia has acknowledged elements of Spike in the film. Years later, Jonze's Her, about a man who falls in love with an operating system, was widely read as his response, and the two films are now frequently analyzed as mirror reflections of the same broken marriage. I mean, rightfully so. Two artists processing the same divorce through art, each in their own medium. That's a kind of romance all its own. I find that beautiful. By 2004, Sofia had met Thomas Mars, the frontman of the French band Phoenix. They'd first crossed paths when Mars sang on Playground Love for the Virgin Suicides, under the pseudonym Gordon Trex, a vocal originally intended for David Bowie. They had two daughters, Romy in 2006 and Cosima in 2010, and married in 2011 at Palazzo Margherita in Bernalda, Italy, the birthplace of her great-grandfather. Francis walked her down the aisle. Since then, Mars has scored nearly every one of her films. It is now a creative partnership as intertwined as their domestic one. Thomas Mars once even said, "It's hard to differentiate the work from the private life." In between came Marie Antoinette in 2006, her most divisive at first, and in the long run, most influential film. Somehow shot at the actual Palace of Versailles, with Kirsten Dunst in 170 handmade gowns designed by Oscar winner Melina Canonero, scored to Bow Wow Wow and Siouxsie and the Banshees. The film was everything that a historical biopic wasn't supposed to be. It was booed at its first Cannes press screening. A Swiss headline declared, "At Cannes, Marie Antoinette guillotined." Sofia, who wasn't at the screening, responded with characteristic cool. It's better to get a reaction than a mediocre response. The film lost money. And then something truly remarkable happened. It refused to die. Over the next decade, her Marie Antoinette became a cult object, as well as a fashion reference. The scene where Sofia gave costume designer Canero a box of pastel Ladurée macarons and said, "These are the colors I love," and Canenio built the entire visual palette of the film from those sweets, became one of the most cited anecdotes in film fashion history. That movie birthed coquette core and the entire saccharine pastel corner of internet aesthetics. And tucked among the historically accurate silk slippers on screen, famously there's a pair of baby blue Converse high tops, left in as a private joke. Now here is where I want to ask you something, and it's a genuine question. Please drop it in the comments. When you think of Sofia Coppola, what is the first image that comes to mind? Is it a film still? Her actual face? I'm curious because part of what makes her such a fascinating blueprint is her indescribable aesthetic. And she continued. Somewhere came out in 2010, winning the Golden Lion at Venice. Have you seen it? Quentin Tarantino's jury was unanimous. Actually, did you know Sofia and Quentin dated? The Beguiled in 2017, which won Best Director at Cannes, but also drew the most serious criticism of her career. She'd removed the enslaved character from the source material, erasing a black woman from a Civil War story set in the Confederate South. Sofia's defense, that treating slavery as a side plot would have been more insulting, satisfied some and enraged others. Then came On the Rocks in 2020, and Priscilla in 2023, which earned a 7-minute standing ovation. She is now premiering Mark by Sofia, an intimate documentary about her oldest friend in fashion, Marc Jacobs.
Marc
Jacobs.
How long have you guys known each other? When do you remember first meeting Sofia?
It was 93.
I was excited to see your collection. I don't know how I knew about it.
Because it's you.
I
You
know.
know about things.
I wanted it to feel like it was made by me, and I wanted to make sure that the audience felt included that it felt personal and they were brought in and never felt like it was an inside joke that they weren't a part of.
So, what does all of this add up to? What is the Sofia Coppola persona exactly? She is obviously a modern-day aesthete, a woman who insists that surfaces are not superficial, that beauty is a legitimate language, and that femininity, when wielded with precision, is a form of intellect. Finally, she occupies a space no other filmmaker does. Equal parts auteur and tastemaker, equal parts intellectual and sensualist. Marc Jacobs once said she represented everything he was ever drawn to: talent, style, creativity, a unique vision and voice, and that she had an interest in fashion, not as an art, but rather art of living. He designed a Louis Vuitton bag with her, the SC bag, logo-free, ultra-supple calfskin, and it became one of the house's most coveted leather pieces, precisely because it was the anti-LV LV bag. Their friendship has been called one of fashion's great platonic love stories, and Sofia herself has put it simply: you're considered superficial and silly if you are interested in fashion, but I think you can be substantial and still be interested in frivolity. That single sentence is the key to her entire worldview. She has never separated the way things look from the way things mean. Her influence on culture now extends far beyond film. The term Coppolacore was coined on TikTok. A writer for Airmail described it as like normcore, only not ugly, cottagecore but not frumpy. Film stills from the Virgin Suicides and Marie Antoinette function as visual currency on Pinterest and Instagram, shared mostly by girls who may never have seen the films in full, but instinctively recognize their language. Polyester magazine put it like this: nearly all of our framework for understanding girlhood can be traced back to a single director. Sofia told them she was surprised. My kids will tell me that teenage girls talk about me on TikTok. Meeting all these young women who said my work was important was really touching. Her camera does something nobody else's does in quite the same way. Film theorists call it the feminine gaze, the reversal of Laura Mulvey's male gaze, although some argue that does not exist.
Do you see your female characters? How do you interpret your female characters with the male gaze?
I guess I don't think about the male gaze. I think about my gaze, and I connect with the characters. No, I just when I look at a story, of course, I connect more to the female characters, and so that's what interests me. That but I never thought about it.
In Sofia Coppola's films, you don't look at women as objects. You look with them as subjects. You feel their boredom, their longing, and their caged restlessness too. Academic Todd Kennedy wrote that Coppola's aesthetic simultaneously evokes foundational gaze theory and attempts to reverse macho tropes from the 60s and 70s male auteur movement, which, of course, includes her father. She is, in a sense, correcting her father's cinema from the inside. She is turning his operatic masculine violence into something quieter on the interior, and it is just as shattering. And this now brings us to the beauty blueprint, because the Coppola blueprint for how to look is inseparable from the Coppola blueprint for how to see. Her personal style is minimal to the point of philosophy. Dark brown hair, a shade her colorist Louis Licari calls California cool, little to no visible makeup, crisp shirts, tailored trousers, ballet flats. She wore shorts to Cannes because, as someone observed, she doesn't need couture to secure any deal. Good for her. She wore the same peep-toe wedges to 3 consecutive Venice Film Festivals. Her wardrobe is a kind of refusal of spectacle, of the performance of femininity in favor of its substance. For beauty, she has been consistent for decades. Natural skin, a flush of color, a good pretty lip. She has told W Magazine that her 5-minute morning routine is a Joelle Chiaco toner, a hydrogel, a face cream, and an Eminence lip balm. She named Laura Geller's lip crayon in Watermelon Cooler, NARS Matte Multiple in Laos for cheeks. She likes putting it on to feel a little put together and sunny. She uses Augustinus Bader's Rich Cream and loved a discontinued L'Oreal lipstick so much she once asked a journalist to help her get them. She eventually collaborated with Augustinus Bader to create her own tinted lip balm in 3 shades: deep pink, bright coral, and plum. She wanted something you could apply without a mirror. As an afterthought, she said, "I like that it looks like you didn't put a lot of effort in. You just throw it on, and it lifts your mood." That last line is the entire Sofia Coppola beauty philosophy. Effort should be invisible. The point is not to look done. The point is to look like yourself, only a little sunnier. She despises super glossy lips, unnaturally long lashes, and contouring. Her favorite movie makeup moments tell you everything. Nastasia Kinski biting into a strawberry and staining her lips in Tess. Kim Basinger with natural skin and eyeliner in 9.5 weeks, Lauren Hutton's hot-rollered ease in American Gigolo, Catherine Deneuve in sunglasses and red lipstick in The Hunger, Rita Hayworth's reveal in Gilda, emerging hair first into the frame. None of these are about plastic perfection. All of them are about full presence, and that moment when someone walks into a room and the room changes temperature. So here is what we can practically take from the Sofia Coppola blueprint. Count with me. 1. Find your uniform and commit to it. Sofia wears essentially the same silhouette every day, and it reads as confidence, knowing who she is, not laziness. 2. Invest in skin, not coverage. Her skincare is serious, her makeup is most casual. 3. Pick one feature and let it carry the whole face. A stained lip, a flush on the cheekbone, maybe special looking eyeshadow, and nothing more really. 4. Let your aesthetic extend beyond your face. No, really. Sofia's films, her home, her wardrobe, her friendships, and her beauty routine all speak the same aesthetic language. Consistency of individual vision is the most attractive quality a person can have.
Start a band, start writing songs. Make them play your songs.
And 5, and this is the one that matters most, define your own version of beauty before the world defines it for you.
Just very politely smiled and said, yes, I see. I understand. No, what I really want to do now is, and then just keep going ahead like some sort of a small burrowing animal.
Sofia was told at 19 that she was the worst, and she didn't bother to argue. She just went and built a world so completely her own that the criticism became irrelevant. The best piece of advice she's given, the one I keep coming back to, is this. Everything good that's ever happened to me came out of something not so good. That is the blueprint. Not perfection, not pick-me-ness, not pretentious glamour. Just knowing what you love and building everything from there. Thank you for watching, and remember, you don't have to be anything you're not. If you know what you want, people respect that. Sofia said that, she's right. I've queued up the next chapter for you here. I'll see you soon. Love, Kira. Now go create your own blueprint.
Did you have a good time?